Thanks for joining us. This is Omni View, episode 72 for June 5th, 2026. Balanced news perspectives. Let's look at the day's news from every angle. Britain's defense investment plan, long delayed, now faces a 2030 Russia threat timeline as Starmer prepares to meet Trump at NATO. The Prime Minister confirmed the 10-year defense investment plan will be published before the NATO summit with President Trump. The announcement follows repeated warnings about Russian military activity and pressure to increase spending beyond current levels. UK government sources present the timing as a necessary response to heightened security risks. Opposition voices question why the plan was postponed from last autumn. International observers note that European allies are watching closely for concrete spending commitments rather than statements alone. Advocates for moving ahead highlight documented increases in Russian military posture since 2022 as requiring predictable long-term funding to modernize UK forces. Those urging more caution stress the value of aligning new spending with verified threat assessments rather than rushed announcements that could lock in inefficient procurement. What specific spending targets does the plan actually contain? Shifting now to developments at the United Nations. The UN General Assembly elected Zimbabwe, along with Austria, Kyrgyzstan, Portugal, and Trinidad and Tobago, to 2-year terms on the Security Council beginning in 2027. The body is the only UN organ authorized to issue binding decisions on sanctions and military action. Supporters of the election highlight Zimbabwe's recent diplomatic engagement and regional influence. Critics point to its domestic governance record as a potential complication for Council consensus. Those welcoming the outcome point to the principle of rotating representation that gives African states a voice in decisions affecting peace and security. Observers urging scrutiny note the requirement that Council members uphold the UN Charter standards on human rights and rule of law. What positions has Zimbabwe taken on recent Security Council matters? Meanwhile, markets in Southeast Asia are under pressure. The rupiah, Indonesian stocks and bonds have come under pressure as investors question the country's policy consistency. Reports cite mounting concerns over governance and economic management. Market analysts describe the sell-off as a reaction to repeated policy signals that have not matched outcomes. Indonesian officials argue external factors are amplifying normal volatility. Those tracing the moves to domestic issues cite the pattern of policy announcements followed by reversals that have reduced predictability for long-term investors. Others point instead to the broader retreat from emerging market assets during periods of global uncertainty. Which specific policies have most affected investor confidence? Turning to technology policy. OpenAI confirmed it intends to comply with an executive order requiring pre-release reviews of advanced AI models. A company executive noted that governments have a role in shaping how the technology is deployed. Industry participants see the commitment as recognition that regulatory oversight is inevitable. Civil society groups argue the order's scope and enforcement details remain unclear. Supporters of compliance note that major AI developers already conduct internal safety checks and can integrate government review without halting progress. Those expressing caution highlight the risk that mandatory reviews could slow innovation or create uneven standards across competing firms. What criteria will determine which models require review? In cultural news, a prominent music figure has died. Kanye King, who established the Mobile Awards recognizing Black music, has died following a battle with colon cancer. Tributes have come from artists including Craig David and Alicia Dixon. Colleagues describe King's work as foundational in elevating Black British artists within the wider music industry. Family statements emphasize a private battle with illness. Those focusing on professional achievements note the measurable increase in visibility for Black musicians that followed the creation of the Mobos. Others draw attention to the reality that public figures often manage serious health challenges privately while continuing professional work. How have awards like the Mobos changed representation in UK music? In celebrity news from Europe, the former Formula One driver was photographed jumping into a pool and kissing his new husband during celebrations in Saint-Tropez. The event marks the first same-sex marriage for a prominent F1 figure. Coverage has focused on the personal milestone and the couple's public display of affection. Some observers note the contrast with traditional expectations around high-profile sports weddings. Those treating the wedding as a private milestone point to the principle that individuals in the public eye retain the right to mark personal commitments without political framing. Others note the visibility such events can provide for changing attitudes within traditionally conservative industries. How do media outlets decide when a personal event carries wider cultural weight? To understand the defense spending announcement more fully, most coverage treats a prime minister's announcement of a 10-year plan as a simple policy decision, but the mechanism is more layered. In the UK, defense spending proposals originate in the Ministry of Defense, undergo Treasury scrutiny for affordability, and must be approved through the annual budget process and periodic strategic defense reviews. NATO's 2% GDP guideline functions as a political benchmark rather than a legal obligation, so governments can adjust timelines without immediate penalty. Knowing this, when you hear claims that a plan meets the threat, you can check whether the figures survive the next spending review or require parliamentary votes. Next time you see a headline about a new defense investment timeline, ask which department controls the final numbers, what happens if economic conditions change, and how previous multi-year plans have been altered mid-cycle. Tomorrow, watch for further statements from OpenAI on how it will implement the model review process. That's OmniView. For full source links and more context, check out today's written briefing on the OmniView summaries page. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed. If balanced perspectives are valuable to you, share this with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Models and Agents for Beginners a listen. Artificial intelligence explained simply for beginners and curious teens. You can explore the whole lineup at naranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.